Hey guys, my name is Abdullah Moatasem, and I have some really interesting tips on how to instantly improve your character design expressions. Tip number 1, studying your own character's proportions.
What I mean by studying your own character's proportions is a lot of people skip that part, especially beginner artists and character designers. You might think that because you're the one who did the design, that you're always going to be able to maintain the proportions in the expression sheets and the posing and all that, which is not necessarily true. Remember, in almost every case, you only drew the character once, maybe twice, but that doesn't mean that you know the character by heart. So I'm gonna show you what I tend to do personally to always try to nail the proportions well. This is my way of doing it. Maybe it differs for a lot of artists, but here's what I do. So here we have an example of a character that I sketched really quickly. And what I first tend to do is I try to figure out his overall face shape so I can gain more simplified control over drawing it again. So in this case, it's a long kind of rectangle, and immediately what I tend to do is I tend to look for shortcuts for myself within my own design. So for this one, like what I did is I tried to see where his eye line and nose line lie within the length of his face. Immediately right away, I found out that his face almost is divided up into thirds. The first third is where the bottom of his eye line is, and the second third is where his nose lies, and then the end of the jaw. So that gives me a very big overview of how to place his features when I'm drawing him again in any type of pose or expression. And secondly, I also don't know the length of his face. How should I judge something like that? So a big starting point for something like that is the cranium, the main circle of his skull. So that would be the case here, the blue circle on the top covering his main part of his cranium. So, and I went ahead and kind of I wanted to see how many circles is his whole head gonna be. And in this case, it's just a tiny fraction more than 2 circles. So almost 2 circles. So 2 circles, divide them up into thirds, and then you have the head. So these are the shortcuts that I found out for myself within my own character design. And remember, these shortcuts, I tend to go all the way and look at all the tiny features and relationships between the distances between his features. And like, for example, his eyes, how far away are his eyes? So in this case, it's half a circle, half an eye, a distance between both of them. The nose width and the mouth width are almost the same. I try to also see like the rhythm in distancing between like the brow line, the hairline, the top of the eyes, also the distance between the nose and the mouth and the chin, how these relationships get. So in that way, I study more and more the measurements that I did in my own design. And remember, if you're an animator's job is to try as best as he can to keep the character's proportions consistent. And what they do is that they need to have a little bit of time in the beginning of every shot, preparing for themselves, drawing the character at shorthands and doing these types of studies for themselves to get the character right. And in most cases, it will be much better as a character designer to take that into consideration when you're doing your own expression sheets. Right away, I start drawing the head in those kinds of measurements that I put for myself. So here I did the 2 circles, divided them up into thirds, and here you have a rough expression that almost looks the same.
Hope you found this useful. Thank you guys for watching.